Good evening, everybody. Zach Cater here with the CowRC factory team, coming back to you live again from a slightly chilly corner of my garage. Hope everybody's having a really good Thanksgiving. Looking forward to Christmas. For everybody that's sorry, it's my phone in the background. I thought I silenced it. Uh, Hope everybody that went to AMS had a really great time. Same thing, the guys this weekend is down at Fall Brawl. Hope you're all enjoying it. For me, I'm kind of gearing up for SIC in January. So currently got my buggy apart working on it. Good evening, Lorraine. Uh, One thing I want to mention before I get too deep, if you want your name and avatar on Facebook to show up on the comments, you do have to give Facebook permission for that. You should be able to go to this link, this website, give them permission, and that way you don't just show up as Facebook user. Also kind of helps me out a little bit. So I'm gonna wait a little minute, let some more people get on here. But in short, tonight, what I'm going to be going over is a really deep dive into differential maintenance. Um, Basically, all the way torn down, cleaning, lubricating, things that you can check for when you're doing this. I've got a couple of little different tips that I use and some tricks to kind of speed up that process. You guys that don't know, I'm an avid eighth scale off-road racer. So being able to change the viscosity of the fluid in your diffs is one of the biggest tuning options that we have for whether you're trying to tighten a car up, loosen it, depending on whatever kind of a track condition that you're racing on. So in front of me, I've got my Mugen MBX 8R Eco, partly torn apart. I'm going to pull up a second camera in a minute. And the first thing you're probably going to notice is my buggy is super dirty. I was racing a couple of weekends ago, and I intentionally left it dirty so you guys can see basically the after effects of using CowRC products on what your diffs are going to look like after you've ran for a while, and you're also going to see the protection that, like Utter Butter specifically, that's going to be a heavy product that I'm going to be using tonight, but how Utter Butter works, how it protects your gear sets. Um, so without much further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the second camera. And I want to give you guys the best view that I can of what's actually going on and keeping this up on the main screen with myself minimalized. Um, if you have any questions along the way, comments, concerns, anything, feel free to drop a comment and let me know. I'm going to do my best to kind of stop periodically, double check the comment section. If I don't pop up your comment on the screen, please don't think that I'm ignoring you. I'm just still kind of working out, being smooth with how to operate everything. So, Fish and Bill, good evening to you, sir. Hope you're doing well. So as you can see, my buggy, I'll give a quick little spin around. This thing is still completely dirty. Obviously, I'm missing a whole lot of stuff as I'm making some changes for next year. But this is still straight, fresh off the track from my last race. And I want to do one more thing before I get going too far. Just checking camera, and I want to make sure that this thing actually stays focused for you guys. All right, so I've disassembled obviously most of the rear end. There's two screws left that I'm going to pop out, and you're going to see exactly what the diff looks like after it's been ran for a race. So without wasting any time, let's get down into it. And if you'll notice, I'm doing all of this work on the medium-sized carbon mat on top of my white magnetic mats. I love the white magnetic mats just for the sake of visibility also for being able to keep everything organized and in place like I like it. I have a very bad habit of sliding my stand forward and backwards, my pit stand, and over time it can like rub. This is one of the laminated finish mats, the white magnetic mats. It's not offered anymore, but that sliding action will cause scratches in it. So I like using a carbon mat on top of it. John Paul, good evening to you, sir. And again, right quick, before I pull this link down, anybody that's chiming in, you want your Facebook profile showing in the comments and who you are, again, go to this link, Talk Studio, and that should be able to give you access to be able to do that. Just connected to you. Right on, John. I hope you enjoy the show this evening. Again, going over differential maintenance. Want to pop my diffs out from the rear, tear it all the way down, and basically build it right back up from scratch. So I want to pull this one banner off. Oh. There we go. All right, there we go. And I'm going to run this ticker down here just so anybody else that chimes in along the way during the show knows what I'm going over, knows what I'm talking about. So I'm going to pop this off of here, and you're going to see the end results. Obviously the diff, and it's the inside of the case. When you're using udder butter, there is very little sling off that you're going to get, on the inside of your diff cases. And I'll show you another shot closer down inside. It's kind of going to come full circle the way that I'm doing this, and you'll understand why there's always just a little bit of udder butter in the bottom on the chassis plate. John Rogers, welcome to the show, sir. Glad to have you here. So, hey, my homeboy Jason, what's going on, buddy? Good evening to you, sir. Let me mute this. The Roadrunner is my phone. Apologize. All right. So, looking in here, you can see the udder butter that's on the diff case. And the reason that's there is how I prep basically what I'm going to refer to as my ring gear. I'm a mechanic for a living, so if I don't call everything correct by RC terminology, that's the whole reason why. Some things I'll refer to as automotive references. So we pop our whole diff out of here. What I really hopefully shows up in focus is, and it's kind of hard to see, but the teeth of the gear set is still glistening. It still has udder butter on it all the way around. And the thing to keep in mind when you're putting udder butter on your gear sets, you're not filling a huge gap. You're only filling up just a couple of thousandths play between the pinion and the ring gear. So you'll see whenever I put all this back together, put it in the buggy, and roll everything around, you'll see why some of that udder butter pushes up, because you need just very little for it to protect your gear sets. So I'm going to set that off to the side for a minute, and I'll pull this other camera back up. So I'm going to pull my pit light down, or my desk lamp down. It's the CowRC desk lamp. Try to give you guys the best view possible down in here. I know it's going to block me a little bit, but if you look inside, basically down here on the chassis plate where my thumb's at, that's all the more udder butter that gets squeezed out. Because again, keep in mind, you're only lubricating a gap of just a couple of thousandths, so it takes very little to actually protect your gear sets. And udder butter is not the only product that I'm going to be using. When I do my diffs, I also use the electrical cleaner and degreaser and hide wipes. And I have a little trick with hide wipes that I like to do that saves you a little bit of cleanup time, also maximizes the product for you to get the most out of a set of hide wipes. So we're going to move this guy over, and we're going to go right into tearing down a diff. Now, the first thing I do is take a hide wipe and just wipe everything off. And good thing about udder butter, it has very low sling off. It's also not a super thick, like automotive style grease. You know, if you think about automotive greases, they're designed to move, you know, a 3,500, 4,000 pound automobile, you know, with 300 foot-pounds of torque behind it. Whereas udder butter is designed specifically for RCs. That's, you know, 8-scale buggy, call it a nitro buggy, making maybe 3 horsepower and weighs just a couple of pounds. What we got here? Johnny, good evening, sir. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show tonight. So, just like that, just a quick wipe from the hide wipe will get everything off of your case. This is a really good time to use, without a doubt, one of my favorite brushes is the CowRC brush. This is the one that comes in the little 6-pack. Very stiff bristles. This is hands down a go-to for me. What else we got? Mr. Daze, good evening, sir. For you cats that don't know, that guy right there, Ryan, is a mean man behind the radio. Very fast guy. So this is a good time, once you've gotten your diff out, to take this stiff bristled brush, and you're generally going to have some dirt build up around your bearings. Just before you disassemble everything, knock that dirt off, because we're wanting to clean everything, obviously, not make more, you know, mess than we have to. And quick and easy as that, you get the majority of the dirt off the outside of your bearings. Johnny, definitely agree. I was always a user of toothbrushes until I started using those brushes, and they are absolutely amazing. Hands down better than any toothbrush that ever could be. So once you got your diff out, you know, obviously you can check your bearings, any kind of notchiness, whether you need to re-oil them or replace them. And we're going to go ahead and crack into this, and we're going to tear this diff all the way down to nothing. And the question a lot of people ask is always how often that you should change your diff fluids. And it really kind of depends. One, it depends on your track conditions. Usually every race I'm changing diffs just to accommodate for track conditions and how I want the buggy to feel. But for me, my golden rule is absolutely no more than 3 hours of run time on a track. That's pushing it pretty far for me. Really good point, Johnny. Toothbrushes do wear out quickly. Those brushes have been holding up very well with the stiff bristles, and also the other brush that comes with it. I'll pull it up down here on the second camera. This has just been another super handy little brush. I like the actual hard plastic tip for scraping things off if I need to. You know, I race on generally hard packed clay, so it kind of sticks in there. Shannon from Louisiana, right on. Thank you. So now that we've got all our screws out, I do like to drain my diffs. I know people are going to ask, this is an old, no longer available shock drain and bleed stand that came from CowRC. And as you can see, I think this diff has about 2 races on it. You can see just how gray the fluid is. So definitely time for service, about 2 hours of run time. And so generally by the time I hit 3 hours of run time, the fluid is very, very black, very dark, obviously well past needing serviced. So go ahead and pop this guy out and just leave the internal gears sitting there. And I'll take a hide wipe and just replace or set the other half of the diff on that side. And then once you get your gears out, obviously, there's still fluid that's going to be in there. Silicone fluid tends to take a long time to drain out. So a little hack that I do, I always keep old hide wipes. Hide wipes, they actually stay moist for a very long time. Obviously, if it's like 90 degrees outside and ridiculous humidity and you leave it sitting out in the sun, they're going to dry out quicker. But for an example, I was using these last night, working on painting a buddy's body. And hide wipes are great for removing Sharpie marker off of a body if you're into painting. But with an old hide wipe, you can kind of just take it, stick it down in the diff case, and just pack it in there. Because the hide wipes, even though they dry out, they still have absorbent capability to them. And the material that the actual wipe's made out of is not paper-based. So there's very little fibers that you're going to get off of it, basically, if any. So unlike using like a paper towel or something to do this, you may get, paper fibers in your diff, which you don't want. But just a simple little hack is to use an old dried out hide wipe to get the silicone out of the inside. And then obviously, if you've ever taken apart diffs, you know that this side gear is always a little bit of a challenge because the silicone fluid makes it stick. Kind of like this one. But you can just take you a pick and work this out. Oh, there you go. Just give her a quick knock on the old carbon mat. Yes, very much so true. The same thing. The juice that's in hide wipes is the same thing as the CowRC New Clean Tire Wash. So if you do have one dry out, you can obviously rejuvenate it with it and keep on rocking with it. So the same thing. There's always going to be that little bit of extra silicone down in there. So take your old dried out hide wipe and just pack it into the diff. Pack it into the case and just let it kind of sop up that extra fluid. And it makes a really nice difference as to how little you're left to clean with. And now once I actually start cleaning the inside of this, what I'm going to be using is the CowRC electrical cleaner and degreaser. So not only is it great for using on your electronics, it's wonderful at cutting grease. So now we've got it apart. We'll knock our pin out and pull this thing all the way down to nothing. And this is something that should be part of your regular maintenance routine, is rebuilding diffs, taking them all the way down. I have seen guys that have ran diffs for so long that basically the pins inside for your spider gears rubbed through the diff case. John Morgan, absolutely, sir. Thank you for tuning in. Stick around. Hope you enjoy the show. Oh, sorry, John. Well, my mouse is going crazy. Yes, sir, Johnny. And the same thing as taking a fresh hide wipe for the out drives. I'm going to be wiping these off. And there is a trick that I do with these out drives on reassembly that is probably an area that a lot of people overlook. So just keep that in mind, and we're going to be coming back around to that. Same thing, I'm going to do a little bit of organization. Take our bearing off, which these bearings are still in great shape. I'm not going to be re-oiling them. And again, now that we've got the diff case torn down farther, you can still see that little bit of silicone inside. So again, I'm just going to keep packing with the hide wipe to help us get the most of this off. Now, obviously, if you're at a track and you're racing and you're changing diff fluids, you may not necessarily go down this far. You're probably going to be more like doing just a quick dump and fill. But again, you can see how much silicone a dried out hide wipe picks up and how little is left inside. Let me pull this back down actually, so hopefully you guys can see a little bit better. Pretty quick process for getting all the silicone out from the inside of your diff case. And then lastly, I'm going to pull out the O-ring, and I do still run the shims behind my side gears. And the same thing for the ring gear side. I'm just going to pop it off on my dried out hide wipe again, and just kind of soak all that up. And then do the same thing. I'm going to pull this side all the way apart and give a nice deep service to the differentials. And this is the same process for front, rear, center diff, doesn't matter. Again, once you get your out drives out, just a hide wipe, and spin it, leaves everything nice and clean. And finally, our other bearing, move it off, and then pop out the last O-ring and washer for the gear side. And that last little bit of silicone, you're just going to kind of, again, smuts it off with a hide wipe. Let it, or a dried out hide wipe, excuse me. And there we go. So from here, your diff's all the way down, disassembled. We're going to take a little bit of the electrical cleaner and degreaser. Give me a second to check up on some comments. Red Dog, good evening to you. Carter, man, it's Cater. Don't worry, it's my entire life people have called me Carter. So, great practice. Yeah, absolutely. It's not necessarily specific to racing, but that's what I do. But even if you have crawlers, bashers, the same process is still going to apply. Where'd it go? Rick, good evening. Welcome to the show. Again, we're going over a deep dive into differential maintenance. Red Dog, no worries, man. No worries. It's all good. So, again, we've got everything torn down, disassembled. I want to clean off that last little bit of silicone. Also, as gears wear, they're metal. There's slight little bits of metal shavings, like flakes. I want to get all that off. I want everything to be super clean when I reassemble. So using the electrical cleaner and degreaser, keep in mind that all of the aerosol cans from CowRC have pressure sensitive nozzles. So it's not just an on-off switch. You can actually and I'm going to make a little bit of a mess, which is fine. I got the carbon mat. I'm not worried about hurting anything, but I'm just going to give it a quick, just a nice, simple little clean off. Again, you don't have to make a heck of a mess doing this. You can see the splatter, on the carbon mat. Again, it's not going to hurt anything with the carbon mats. But just that simple to clean off. You know, my spider gears inside. Just going to let those sit there and keep on draining out. Actually, I'm going to need this. So we're going to move them off to the side here. And the same thing, that last little bit of silicone that's inside the diff case, we're just going to spray the inside with a little bit of the electrical cleaner and degreaser. And you'll see it working. You'll see the silicone start parting ways, just like, you know, Moses in the sea. And no matter how you do this, whether you do it on a shock, you know, bleeding stand, or a paper towel, or even just a bed of old hide wipes would work wonders. And again, I'm just packing the hide wipe down into the diff. The new clean makes it better. I do not recommend ingesting any CowRC products. You know, even though CowRC brings the beef, I don't think it's the kind that you want to eat. So that last little bit of silicone that's done in the diff case, we're going to clean out. And again, now you see, hopefully, inside's nice, clean, dry. There's no silicone, you know, left in there. And what I have here off to my side is something you guys might want to look for. And I'm not 100% sure how sure this is going to show up on a camera, but this is an old diff of mine that was kind of wore out. Again, it looks like I'm getting a pretty bad shadow here, but basically you can take a pick and where the pins ride, go up and down. You shouldn't have any kind of a groove to them. It should be nice and smooth, but in this specific case, right where the basically the spider gears ride, already started cutting a pretty big groove into the plastic. So that's one reason why you really want to get these diffs nice and clean with the electrical cleaner and degreaser, so you can really get in there and really inspect what's going on. The same thing with the metal sleeve where the outdrives go into. You know, this is metal into plastic. Just like thermodynamics, different materials expand and contrast at different rates. So I have seen on some vehicles where these metal sleeves can actually start coming out of the plastic housing. So you just want to make sure that you get it very well clean so you can do a really proper, thorough inspection, you know, in your downtime. So let's move that off to the side. So we've got our diff case ready to go back together. We'll give it one last wipe out. And again, with the electrical cleaner and degreaser and the pressure sensitive nozzles, you know, you see just how little product you actually need to get a nice, neat clean versus just hogging away on it, you know, full bore. Make that product last as long as you can and really use the benefits of it, because the electrical cleaner and degreaser is superior at cutting grease, and it has a very quick flash time, which means that it dries really quick. It also displaces water. So if by chance something happened and your buggy or truggy took a sink someplace, it'll help get out any kind of water that's left. So before you go back together, if you have any shims on your diff cases, you know, make sure that they're still there. So the last thing I'll do right here. All right, your O-rings. You want to actually put a little bit of udder butter on these guys. It's going to help condition the O-ring. It's also going to help seal your outdrives. Let's see, Daze. Clear around the diff with the metal. Good tip. I actually didn't know that. I've never thought about that. But Ryan Daze there, put a bead of glue around where the metal sleeve goes into the actual diff case if you run into that issue. I've never had that issue, but I know people that have mentioned it, especially with Mugens, which is what I run. Apparently it was an issue at one point. So as we go back together, udder butter is going to be our big key player here. If you've never used udder butter is fantastic I'll go over a couple of notes. The composition of it is aluminum and mineral oil complex. And the nice thing about it is that you get great tackiness. You get very little sling off, but it's not super thick like an automotive stock grease. Like I've used high pressure black grease in the past before I got on with using CowRC products, and I always had the issue of it slinging off. It was always just really thick. So you get the benefits of a product that's actually waterproof as well, has low drag to it, and provides phenomenal protection. For this application, you can also use it on your shock body O-rings, your turnbuckles when you're threading it into like your camber links or your steering links. And it'll keep them from sticking, make everything nice and smooth. So without further ado, same thing. I'm just taking a high wipe to kind of clean off the excess. And then just a little bit of udder butter on my other finger. And if you look on the CowRC website, udder butter comes in 3 different size containers. This is the 8-ounce tub that I'm using, which I have been rocking for nearly 2 years. And you can see I've used a quarter, maybe a third of it. There's also the big boy 2-pound tub, which is nearly a lifetime supply for anybody, or it's a 40 milliliter syringe if you like a syringe application versus using your hands. So, find my bearing. As we go back together, everything's inspected, everything's fine. My bearings are fine. This is the one area that I'm betting a lot of people probably overlook, and you shouldn't. Is actually putting some udder butter on this out drive, right where my finger's at, because that's sliding into that metal sleeve. So you have an area for friction. There's also an area for dirt ingress. Granted, it's a very tight area, but we still want to minimize as much dirt ingress as possible. Jason, which part did you not know, buddy? Chime back in. I'll see if I can't help you out all the way with that. Johnny, the syringe. The syringe is a very popular option, very easy and portable as well. The 8-pound tubs work for me. So before you put your out drives back in, the same thing. You're just going to want to do a very light coating of udder butter. You don't need to pack this in here. It doesn't need to be a big, heavy, gooped up application, because all that you're trying to do is minimize the friction between that metal sleeve and the out drive. Can also help about diffing out. If you do have an out drive that starts sticking on one side of the diff and the other side's freed up, obviously it's going to make the car handle not as you intend it to. Yeah, I knew somebody out there probably wouldn't know that. I think that's an area that, again, a lot of people can overlook. So just take that little bit of udder butter, because we're racing here. We're wanting everything to perform as well and as consistent as possible. And again, when you push the out drive through, you get very little excess, udder butter in there, which isn't really going to hurt anything. Let's see. Filled with udder. Yes. I've heard a lot of guys that do that. That's a great tip. If you don't feel like carrying around the big tub, the small packs that come in the sample containers, just repack them, and you're good to go. So yeah, that's actually a really great tip. Thin to win, that's right. I said udder butter goes a long ways and is superior at protection. All right. So as we go back together, we've got our O-ring in all nice and lubed up. We put our washer on. As I knock everything over, and I just realized I forgot a tool. Give me just 1 second. Little tip. Sometimes these washers can be a total pain in the butt to get over. So just take an appropriate size nut driver. You can shove it straight down. Otherwise, you might be sitting there for a while fighting with these things. And the same thing, the small parts like the pins that go through the out drive, I just give them a wipe down, again, with a hide wipe. And then drop it back in. And you guys know that sometimes this can be a little bit fun to try to get lined back up. Let you get your pin started. What I'll do, give it a couple of knocks on the table to start it down, and then start working the pin all the way through. And once you've got your pin in, same thing. You can obviously spray down the side gears with the electrical cleaner and degreaser. You can get them clean. You can also just take a quick hide wipe if you're trying to do a live show and minimize, mess. But again, inspecting everything, it's so important to get everything clean, because you're going to want to look for any kind of teeth that may be chipped, cracked, and help prevent you from having a diff failure on a race day. We put our side gear back in, drop in our actual spider gears. Now everything's nice, neat, clean, and fill your diff up with whatever flavor you want of fluids. And again, depending on what you run, you're going to figure out your own way for how much fluid you need to actually fill in your diff cases. But just let that set off to the side. And the same thing with our ring gear side. We're going to clean it up, wipe everything down. Good time if you need to replace a gasket, obviously replace a gasket. I'm still waiting on some to show up. But a tip too, if you put a new gasket on and this gasket's wanting to kind of slide around, or you can't quite get the holes lined up in it, put a little daub of udder butter on the gasket and then stick it down on the ring gear, and it'll keep that gasket from walking around on you. So we'll do the same thing on this side. Have our O-ring. Just give it a quick wipe down. And believe it or not, these are the same O-rings I've been running for 2 seasons. And they still look brand new. There's no discoloration to them. And I've always just done this with the udder butter to keep them actually sealed, keep them nice, soft, supple. So slide your O-ring in. And again, your diff cases on the inside may be slightly different than what this is, but for the most part, it should be pretty similar. So I'm going to lay my washer on here. And again, that udder butter that's actually on that O-ring is going to help hold that shim right there. So find my bearing. Put our bearing back on. Again, bearings have all been checked. I do use the ultra thin oil with PTFE from CowRC on all of my bearings, and you will be surprised at how long you can go on not having to service the diff bearings with the PTFE oil. It's been a very impressive product. So again, same thing. We've got our out drive, nice, cleaned up, everything's wiped down, ready to go. Put a little bit of udder butter, actually probably a little bit too much, on that out drive. And then just roll it around and give it a nice light coating. What do we got here? Mr. Ross, good evening, sir. Thanks for stopping by. Glad you could hop in here. So again, with doing the out drives with just a light coating of udder butter on them, you're going to help prevent any kind of diffing out or stiction against that metal sleeve, because we want everything to run and be as nice and smooth as we possibly can be. And again, when you push through, you can see there's very, very little udder butter that, actually gets pushed off. So if you're somebody that was like worried about, udder butter affecting the 7,000 fluid you put in your diff or something, not going to happen. Nothing that you got to worry about. And lastly, same thing, quick wipe with a pen. And then we're going to put this back together. I was trying to tilt it there so the camera could see a little bit better, but sometimes it's kind of like a game of Jenga, and you just got to be careful. So same thing for me. Once you get your pen started in there, just give it a little bit of a tap. It'll start working its way down. Save yourself a little bit of fighting and hassle. Push your pen through. And again, going back to a hide wipe. Wow, that silicone just really sticks it to a carbon mat. Get everything nice and clean. And again, hide wipes are one of my most used items from CowRC. They are just wonderful for everything under the sun. So once you're ready to go back together, just put it back together. Drop your side gear in. And a little tip that I like to do is the notches, the cutouts on your side gear, kind of line them up with the cutouts on the actual diff case. That way you can just line up your pin, flip it over and go. And then press down. And if you filled your diffs up correctly, you shouldn't have anything, pushing out of the holes. If you do have any kind of fluid, just take you a pick, kind of push it down in there to push that other fluid out. So let's move this off to the side. We're going to stick this back together right quick. And again, as soon as I quit making noise, you guys can actually hear me pretty good. When you're cleaning your diffs, especially if you're trying to use like the parts and chassis wash in an ultrasonic cleaner and you're trying to get udder butter off, it's going to take you a really long time. Because I've mentioned this before, the parts and chassis wash is not a heavy chemical cleaner and degreaser. Let me actually swap this back over. It's wonderful at removing dirt and debris, but not so much heavy grease and oil. So again, the nice thing with udder butter, being that aluminum mineral oil composition, is it's super easy to clean off. Nothing, that you really need to do special. So just like on race day, especially if you're somebody that runs multiple classes, you may have very little downtime in between rounds, and you just need to knock out a quick diff change, to suit your needs. You can just take a hide wipe, wipe it off, reapply it, and go. So there we go. Let me swap this back over. Somebody once told me that I should remember the shift commands for doing this, and I haven't done it yet. But then you go one diff, nice, oiled. You got udder butter in there rocking out on those seals and those out drives, so everything is nice, smooth, well protected. So the last thing, I'm going to put the udder butter on the actual ring gear, and then I'm going to show you what I do to the chassis side of things. So for me, my reference is always, if you're somebody that's ever had to pack wheel bearings, like on a trailer, that's basically kind of the mindset that I'm doing with the ring gear. You don't need a ginormous amount of udder butter on your ring gear teeth. What I do, again, I'm using the tub instead of the syringe. You just put a good sized dollop on your finger, and then you just go around in a handful of places, work it in. You'll see this as it comes around, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this into every single tooth, just like packing a wheel bearing in the real world. That right there is beyond enough to protect your diffs. And a lot of this I'm probably actually going to be wiping off. Okay. Dino, my man, right there, luckiest man in the world. Nice of you tuning in tonight, Dino. So once you've got those main little dollops of grease around, just take your finger and wipe it around. Any places that get missed, just pack it right back in. And when I'm done, I'll show this as close as I can to the camera as possible so you see exactly what's going on. I should go just a little bit more right there. And again, remember, you're only trying to protect a couple of thousandths gap between the pinion and the ring gear. So if you just goober this up with a boatload of udder butter, one, you're wasting a lot of product that you paid for. Two, you can actually induce more drag into the diff because you're just pushing through more butter. So we're going for obviously protection as well as the best performance as possible by not having an excessive amount of drag. And then once you've got all the teeth packed in, just keep wiping that excess off until the teeth are all nice, smooth, and packed. And this right here is what you're going to end up with. This will focus. There we go. You can see just the tops of the teeth, but down in every single tooth, there's udder butter applied. So once you got your diff all built up, let's swap back over to the buggy. Double check comments here. Scott, good evening. Welcome, sir. Doing a very deep dive on differential maintenance, full teardown, full rebuilds. So I'm going to bring my buggy back over here. And again, you see that little bit of udder butter that gets pushed out. And what I'm going to do is just take a pick to kind of give you an idea of how little there is. Just that little booger of butter. And again, I'll explain to you why that little bit's in there. But just taking a hide wipe, wipe that excess off the chassis. So now everything's nice, neat, and clean. And obviously, my buggy is dirty. I haven't cleaned it up because I wanted you guys to see exactly what this looks like when you come off the track, what you're going to expect when you use the product. Perfection. That's what we're after, perfection. So, actually, I can't just chunk that diff in there with that dust. It'll bug me, even though I'm still going to clean this back up. So the last thing, before putting your diff back in, you can obviously check your pinion bearings. Again, everything that I run is using the ultra thin oil with the PTFE, so everything's always nice and smooth. So lastly, I'm going to pop this diff back in here, and I'm going to try to show you guys. You're probably not going to be able to see it, but again, remember, you're only filling a gap of just a few thousandths between the teeth of the ring and the pinion. That's why you need so little udder butter. So with the diff in here, I'm just going to hold it and rotate it around, and I'm going to pull this back out so you guys can see why there's just that little daub of butter down in the bottom. And you can see obviously how we're going to get some of it pushed out between contact of the ring and pinion because I'm taking up more space than what's actually there. So when you pull the diff right back out, again, you get that same little dollop. So that's basically all of the CowRC udder butter that gets wasted when using this method when packing the teeth in. And again, you can still see, if this focuses, all the teeth are nice, well, and protected. And yes, on the topic of sling off from Dino here, again, if we look at my actual diff case cover, you can see just how little udder butter gets slung off. It's so minimal. So it has great retention for where it's put. And again, udder butter 100% plastic safe. You get that ability of having superior protection because it's designed for an RC versus using thick, heavy automotive greases that are designed to push something with a lot of weight, a lot of torque and power behind it. So that pretty much covers rebuilding the diffs. Remember, keep in mind about servicing the out drives. Help prevent that stiction, that diffing out, between that metal sleeve and the out drive. And that's basically it. Again, 3 simple products to absolutely take the best care of your diffs as possible. Again, had these kind of off camera, but hide wipes, electrical cleaner and degreaser, and your preferred flavor of sized udder butter. So that's going to wrap up the most part of things that I got for you guys tonight. See a few other little notes. Double check myself. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, specifically for racing applications, drop a comment. Even if you see this show after the live part has aired, let me know what you guys think. If there's something that you're curious about for how CowRC can help with your racing program, with your maintenance routines, feel free to comment. You can look me up on Facebook, Zach Cater. You'll see my buggy body as my avatar. So I'm pretty easy to find. And I would love to hear from you guys. I'll help you out any way that I can. Johnny. These shirts are the theme shirts from CowRC, and they are amazing. The graphics on them are top notch. The material that they're made out of is actually super comfortable. And I got to show the back off of this since you mentioned it, but the back graphic is out of this world. So one last thing I want to touch on before I hop off of here. Guys, don't forget the Operation Charlie or Operation 11 Charlie build. Make sure I'm saying that right. Yeah, Operation 11 Charlie build. This is the giveaway from CowRC in cooperation with Operation 11. You can go to the CowRC website, scroll down to, well, I done passed it, but right here on the main screen, you can go to it. Tickets are just $1 a piece. Get your chance to win an awesome freaking Traxxas Max that will be fully loaded up with CowRC products, superiorly protected. So you guys can tune in next Sunday to the Caltech episode. Follow along with Adam and Tyler. Help those guys out. But that's an awesome cause that's going to. So maybe you're not quite ready to hand over your little one, your buggy, but you want to get him into RC. There's an awesome shot at doing it for just $1. Let's go back through some last comments. Lorraine, thank you. Hope it was helpful. The dragon shirt, yeah, man. All of the themes from CowRC you can get in a shirt. Are you racing this? Wicked Weekend is summertime. Oh, this weekend. I got your comment now. Probably not. Christmas time, family time for me right now. This is kind of my downtime, rebuilding everything. My next big stop will be for the Southern Indoor Championship in Alabama in January. That's what I'm gearing up for and kind of saving for. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you guys all for tuning in. One last little thing. I was given permission to kind of show this off. If you're looking for storage, um, this is a new case. I'm pretty sure Adam had showed this or Tyler had showed this in the last Caltech episode, but this should be coming onto the CowRC website soon. Just a simple clamshell opening case, and it is big enough to hold some 8th scale parts in there. Got wheel nuts, camber and steering links, rod ends, shock cap tops, and each one of these are individually openable. So keep an eye out for those if you're looking for more storage options over the winter. And guys, this is pretty much going to wrap it up for me. Give you guys a couple of minutes. If you have any other questions that you want to ask, I will be glad to try to answer them. Johnny, pinions. Not quite big enough to hold a Mod 4 pinion. That's what I run, Mod 4 on my buggy. They're just a little bit too big to fit into the case, but smaller scales, definitely 10th scale pinions, should be able to fit into it no problem. Red Dawn, thank you for tuning in. Sorry, my throat's getting a little bit dry. Adam, absolutely. Again, tune in next Sunday, guys. Check out the Caltech episodes for more information from CowRC and all the latest and greatest news. Appreciate you guys tuning in for me tonight, listening to me talk. Certainly hope this helps you out. Take your maintenance game to the next level. And nobody else has any questions, this is pretty much going to be the end for me. So I think we're all good. So guys, again, hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. Everybody that's racing Fallbrawl this weekend, hope you all have a safe trip back home, and maybe be back on here before Christmas. So if not, though, Merry Christmas. God bless you all. Good night.